Hello, Peter Baker here from voiceovermasterclass.com. You know, I was reading an article about artificial intelligence and how computers are going to take over our work as voiceover artists. But it was particularly amusing to read that the developers are having to add in artificial breaths to make their computer voices more realistic, which is strange, isn't it? As us voiceovers do our best to minimize breaths, and for some types of scripts spend ages cutting the flipping things out in edit. But anyway, I thought in this video I'd go through how to maximize your breathing in voiceover, how to minimize breaths when you're recording, and also how to deal with them afterwards in edit. I'll also talk about why I don't personally use hardware noise gates, and why even though the software noise gate in Adobe Audition, for example, is extremely effective, I don't use it. But I'll show you the noise gate that I do use, which is a third-party plugin, and it's perfect for us voice artists. By the way, my own views on artificial intelligent voices is that they certainly will replace our work for low-end training voiceovers, some IVR, phone prompts and things, but for anything that requires any amount of emotion, it's much more efficient and easier to ask a human being to do something than to program a computer, yeah? A director can simply say to a human voiceover artist, just add a bit more pride at the start of section 3, will you? Or give it a bit more Stephen Fry. You know, try programming that into a computer, right? It just takes a few seconds to be understood by a human. Anyway, on to breathing. I assume that you try to keep yourself as physically fit as possible. If you have any breathing medical issues, you use your medications. For example, I'm a mild asthmatic. I have to use my inhalers a couple of times a day, my blue ones when I have an asthma attack. So do whatever the doctor tells you. Eat healthily, yes, drink a load of fresh water, keep hydrated, do cardio exercise every day, and the usual healthy advice that I've given you in my training courses, and you've probably read about them in the Sunday supplements as well. So yes, healthy. Now in life, you should always breathe through your nose because the air gets filtered that way. It doesn't through the mouth. But in the voice booth, behind the microphone, of course, it's fine to breathe through an open mouth because that way breathing noises are minimized. It's a bit of a technique to do, and you look a bit strange, but remember, nobody can see you doing a voiceover recording, can they? And that thought is even more important if you're going to consider this next tip. Now, firstly, hold your nose and speak.
And you sound a bit like a demented puppet, don't you? Like Frank
Sidebottom or whatever. Yes, extremely nasal. So if you haven't got a cold and you can breathe through your nose, you sound normal. But what if you could increase the amount of air that goes through your nose? And that's where, of course, these things do their job. These strips of springy metal that you stick on your nose that widen the passages. You get them from pharmacies or buy them from Amazon. Look out for Breathe Easy nasal strips. Quite a few people make them around the world. People use them in bed to stop them snoring. It opens up the nasal passages just slightly, but it makes all the difference between breathing properly in bed and then having to open your mouth and then snoring all night, and then of course you get a sore throat. But us voiceovers can use these in the voice booth, and I actually do wear these things. Again, you look an idiot, but no one can see you, particularly for very soft, intimate voiceovers. When I'm being directed, I can't stop and start. They want to hear the whole read in one go. So I've got to use as much breath as I can, and I need to minimize my breathing and use every atom of oxygen I can get in cleanly without making a noise through the nose. Yeah, you do look ridiculous. You look a pretty pig-like as well, as if you're from Royston Vasey. But hey, we're voice actors and nobody can see us, can they? Now, the angle you put these on is pretty critical. You put them on the bridge of your nose, then angle them down so it opens up your nose as effectively as possible. Do you want me to put one on? Okay, here we go. So this springy bit of metal, that's all sticky then, basically opens up the nasal passages here just a little bit, but enough so you can breathe and breathe cleanly without making too much of a noise. It's really, really clever. Now, for some people, these things are an absolute miracle. You just feel yourself breathing cleanly and more effectively than you've ever before. Even if you don't need these in the voice booth often, try them in bed, because if you can sleep with your mouth fully closed all night, that's great, because it means that your voice doesn't get dried out in the night. Now let's continue with the breathing tips. And if you can stand up in the voice booth rather than sit down, this will maximize your breathing potential, as well as to teach yourself to breathe from the diaphragm, so you fully fill those lungs of yours. And I've got much more about breathing in the various courses I have on VoiceOver Masterclass, as some of you may already appreciate. But of course, we often get scripts which are meant to be read without obvious gasps of breath, but often sentences are too long. So this is where you need to use the stop and start technique. This is where you identify a long sentence and you keep going till there's an edit point when you know you'll be able to chop out a huge breath later without anybody noticing. And that's where you take a big breath. So let me pretend I'm reading a long sentence now. And keep on going. I'm determined not to breathe at all. And up comes a comma. And then I take a huge breath, knowing it's going to be chopped out in edit. But I continue reading the rest of the sentence after the comma. But it mustn't sound like I've taken a huge breath. So basically, the energy levels either side of that huge gasp and the tone of voice must match. All right? So don't, just because you've got lots of air, suddenly go louder. So then you can edit the two bits together. Now, what about noise gates? A noise gate can be either a hardware device or you can apply it in software. You set it up with a lower threshold, so if the audio level goes below a certain level, it cuts off. So it should, in theory, create nice, clean recordings and background rumble, or your breaths could be cut out in between sentences. Now, many years ago, before I had a nice quiet voice booth, I used to have a hardware noise gate to get rid of distant traffic noise and low heating rumble in the house. In other words, my microphone went into the hardware device and out of that into the computer, and it cut out the signal in between words and phrases completely before it got recorded. Then a really important agency for a really important job had good ears. They heard I had used a noise gate because they heard starts of words slightly clipped a bit, and they insisted on a recording without the noise gate, which of course I didn't have because my microphone went into the hardware device. That's why I always record a raw file without any processing and do the noise gate work in software afterwards. And this is for the majority of clients who want a nice clean file with compression and often don't have time to mess about to make the voice sound better. You see, the high-end jobs where you're dealing with a top production company or an advertising agency who have the time and a big budget to do all the audio processing and everything will insist on getting completely unprocessed files from you, the voiceover. You can't unbake a cake and you can't unprocess an audio file either, so they need the raw WAV file recording from you. In fact, when you do a directed session over headphones from an agency, you really shouldn't cut out any of the chit-chat and the mistakes that you made, because during the directed session, they may well have put a stopwatch on the whole session. And if you cut out the chit-chat, then that timing won't work, will it? They're not going to easily find that wonderful take you did at 22 minutes into the session, are they? So make sure that any client doesn't want completely unprocessed files from you. The rest of the time, yes, you're saving your end client's time to make your voice sound wonderful. You can send them already processed and enhanced voiceover files so they can stick it straight into their project and everybody is happy. That's why the number one rule of this game is that you always keep the unprocessed version of your file. The easy way to do this, I find, is to simply put an extra underscore on the file name when you've processed it. So you'd call the file name of project underscore your name .wav. And then for the processed version, you would add an extra underscore. You see, if you start calling file names compressed and uncompressed and all that, not only does this take longer to type, but it confuses the client as well. And they think, oh, maybe we should have uncompressed and all this. So an extra underscore won't be noticed by anyone apart from you, right? So in your voiceover files on your computer, you'd normally have two versions of everything you do. The complete raw recording which you would actually return to work on if there were any changes or additions, and then the exported, processed version that you'd send to most clients. So when I do have files for clients who want the full processing, so I sound optimized and wonderful, what noise gate do I use? Well, there's a superb one in Adobe Audition, but I don't use it. Let me show you why. You join me in my voice booth. I've got the door open, the window open, and there's a fan outside. If I stop talking, can you hear it? Yes, see the level at the bottom there, the old floor, is about -51, which would be unacceptable even for ACX audiobooks. So I'm just going to record a bit of this awful background noise, and let's see if a noise gate can get rid of it. Okay, that's enough. Stop recording, and we'll close the booth door. So just to analyze this now we've got a bit of peace, you'll see you can probably see a little bit of stuff going on there. To let the dog see the rabbit, click this button up here, the spectral frequency, and you'll see all this should be completely black. It should be silent, ideally, apart from a little bit maybe. You can just play it back. Hear it? It's awful, that, isn't it? So let's look at the noise gate that you get in Adobe Audition. Effects, amplitude and compression, dynamics. Forget compressor, forget expander, click them off. Just go to auto gate. Threshold is the point at which it will actually gate, basically. -31 is about right for this sort of level I've got here. If you really wanted to work it out properly, you'd go to Window, Amplitude Statistics, click Scan, and you'd find, there we are, total RMS amplitude, -28. So RMS is root mean square. Something about -30 is fine, so that will do for now. And I'm just going to apply it and see what happens. Now watch what happens in the quiet areas. Apply. Whoa, and suddenly it's all gone. Work, but a noise gate. But you see, it goes to nothing. Even the traffic noise here, keep recording this. It goes to nothing. And even between the words it goes to nothing. Kids were playing, a noise gate wouldn't be any good. And it just sort kids were playing a noise, and it just cuts in and out, which I find not natural at all, and many clients would find the same. So even though that noise gate is extremely effective, I mean, let's just undo that. Now watch the screen. Whoa. And put it on again. Whoa. And looking up here, see, look, it's dark, it's fantastic. It's just cut out completely. But it's just not natural, and that's why I don't use the Adobe Audition noise gate. So if the noise gate in Adobe Audition is just simply harshly switching the audio on and off, and there isn't a separate control for making it not off, but just a bit softer and less aggressive with a nice ramp, a ramp reduced system, what can you do if Adobe doesn't do it? Well, the answer is to use a third-party plugin that does have this facility. There are many out there, but my favorite comes from the Reaper stable. Let me show you. This is the plugin that I like. It's from the Reaper website, and you just need to download all the RIA plugs. You've got them there for 32 or 64-bit. Just look at the wonderful free resources that you can get, and you can just include it in your favorite audio program. So there's the gate, and that's the only one we want. Forget all the others. I mean, they're excellent as well, but I'm quite happy with what Adobe Audition has for this. So download that. It appears on your computer. You go back to Adobe Audition, you go to Effects, you go to Audio Plugin Manager, and then you simply scan for plugins and select the ones that you want. And you see, I've got Valhalla on there, you've got BPA, and there's the RIA gate I've already got in. So I don't want to rescan, I don't want any of those things, those ducks, whatever. So here's our bad background here. We go to Effects, this time it's VST, Cocos, and here we go. You will play around for a long time until you find the right settings. You're very welcome to take a screenshot of this and try out mine. Instead of -30, mine switches on at -43.3, so it's much softer. And also you've got wet and dry, you see, so you can actually have the original without any processing with the process mixed. And what's more, instead of just cutting out, it sort of fades out. So you've got this pre-open as well. You've got a nice release as well. So, as I say, I've played around for a while to get the best for my voice style, and my setup here. But now if we apply this, you've still got the traffic noise there, but I would never have the traffic noise. But what I have got here is extremely quiet in between. Just play this noise gate. You see it went to 75. Now, if outside and it came in cleanly without clipping, so it doesn't go straight to nothing. So that's why I like that third-party plugin, and it's much better for voiceovers. It sounds much more natural. Well, I hope all this has been useful for you. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck with your voiceover projects. And please check out our courses at voiceovermasterclass.com. And if you're already a member, don't forget you've got full access to all the classes. Check them all out. Have a go. Fill your boots. Have a good day.